Good morning, everyone. I'm John McFreeman, and I have the privilege of being the president of the Georgia First Amendment Foundation, the nonprofit open government advocacy organization that sponsors today's conference. We welcome you to the 35th annual edition of the Georgia Bar Media and Judiciary Conference, which is intended to foster greater understanding and awareness of the roles that the news media, the judiciary, and the legal profession each play in a well-functioning civic information system that is the backbone of participatory democracy. If you're interested in learning more about what we do at the Georgia First Amendment Foundation or attending one of our many trainings or webinars, we are online at gfaf.org. We've pulled together a day of presentations that we hope will inform, inspire, and maybe even outrage you as we look at how the legal system fosters freedom of speech and freedom of the press and occasionally falls short of that aspiration. But before we get into all of that, a few housekeeping notes. If you are a Georgia attorney seeking CLE credit and you didn't supply your bar number when you registered for the conference, please make sure to stop by the registration desk before you leave today to give us your bar number. Please select the boxed lunch you indicated in our pre-event poll to make sure there are plenty of vegetarian and vegan options available for those folks who need them. Restrooms are down the hall and to your right as you walk out of the conference room out that direction. Finally, we very much welcome audience questions and participations in each of our sessions, but please come to the mic located in the center of the room so your question can be heard by everyone and is audible and visible on the recordings. Also, many of you may have questions about Wi-Fi. The network is GABAR1 and the Wi-Fi password is all lowercase, State Bar Law, !012026. The names of all of our organizing committee members are in your conference materials, and we are grateful for their volunteer service in pulling together this high-powered group of speakers, all of whom are donating their time and talent to make this the most engaging possible day for you. We owe special thanks to some of our MVP partners and volunteers without whom this conference simply could not happen. First, Ashley Stoller and the staff here at the State Bar of Georgia for all of their support from start to finish, including the use of this beautiful facility. Second, Richard Griffiths and Kathy Brister of the Georgia First Amendment Foundation. Just about everything you see, hear, eat, or drink is the result of their efforts, and they are the glue that holds this event together. Third, Leslie Gaither at Kilpatrick Townsend, who every year unfailingly pulls together the sponsorships that make this event possible. And finally, our friends at the University of Georgia Grady College of Journalism and Mass Communication, where Associate Dean Jonathan Peters has kindly arranged for two of his stellar students, Jillian Ward and Kathryn Young, to join us today to film the conference for archiving on our YouTube channel. We could also not put together a program of this ambition without the generous sponsors you see on the screen and in your conference materials. I'm going to quickly thank them here, and I encourage you to thank them throughout the day as well. Mercer University School of Law, Emory University School of Law, the ACLU of Georgia, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Atlanta Press Club, Brian Cave, Kaplan Cobb, CNN, the Council of Probate Court Judges of Georgia, the Council of State Court Judges of Georgia, the Council of Superior Court Judges of Georgia, Cross Kincaid Bascom, the First Amendment Clinic at the University of Georgia School of Law, the Georgia Recorder, the Griffiths Family Fund, Kilpatrick Townsend, and of course, the State Bar of Georgia. Please join me in a round of applause for them. So to bring us our first discussion session entitled Beating the Rap, it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage Professor Meagan Hurley of Mercer University's Walter F. George School of Law. Mercer Law is a valued sponsor and partner in this conference, and Professor Hurley is uniquely suited to serve as a bridge between our realms of newsroom and courtroom. After receiving her bachelor's degree from Reinhardt University, she covered the justice system as a reporter for newspapers in Alabama and Georgia before enrolling in law school at Mercer. After graduation, she joined the staff of the Georgia Innocence Project, where she worked on teams that won exoneration for 4 wrongfully convicted men, and she helped launch an innocence clinic at Samford University's Cumberland School of Law. She joined the faculty at Mercer in 2023, where she leads the Habeas Project, Mercer Law's nationally recognized post-conviction defense clinic. Please join me in welcoming Meagan Hurley.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Closer to the mic.
Sure. I think it's on.
It is on.
Okay. All right. Well, I am delighted to be here with you all, and I'm really delighted to introduce a man who probably really needs no introduction, particularly in this room, none other than Mr. Brian Steele. I want to tell you a couple things about Brian before we get started with our conversation, some of which I'm sure you know, other parts you might not. So Brian is a partner at the Steele Law Firm here in Atlanta. He is a former public defender turned private practitioner who spent more than 3 decades defending individuals accused of crimes in state and federal court all over the country. Over the course of his career, he has built a nationally recognized criminal defense practice known for meticulous preparation, strategic motions litigation, and exceptional trial and appellate advocacy. With over 300 published appellate opinions, at least 45 reversals that I've noted, and dozens of acquittals to date. Louder, louder, sorry, basically touching my mouth. All right, but many of you know Brian from news stories more recently, from his work as lead defense counsel in Georgia's high-profile YSL racketeering prosecution, as well as his role on the defense team representing Sean Diddy Combs in federal court. His practice has spanned everything from RICO to complex fraud to even death penalty litigation. Brian is a fellow of both the American College of Trial Lawyers and the American Board of Criminal Lawyers. He is a lifetime member of the Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, and as today, frequently presents at CLEs and continuing education programs. So please, everybody, help me welcome Brian Steele to our conference. So Brian, you're the star of the show today. I have a few questions to get you started, but I have a feeling we're not going to need many of those. So first of all, could you just tell the audience a little bit about how you got here to this point of being probably one of the most well-known criminal defense attorneys of our generation? Just last night, I went on a whole internet rabbit hole on you, and people are calling you the modern Johnny Kathryn. How'd you get here? You started as a Fulton County public defender.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for letting me be here. And I am definitely not close to the Honorable Johnny Kathryn or anyone else. I'm just the luckiest person who ever became a lawyer. I was born in Queens, New York, and the best father in the world taught me that you never lie, you work hard, and he showed me at a young age where like my grandparents and great-grandparents came from and moved to New York on the Lower East Side, and they lived in a room with no running water. It was a room, it's a small room, 11 of them sleeping in there, working 3 jobs, no education, can't speak English, and he explained to me that they worked in these seltzer factories and they lost their fingers, and they did all that so the next generation, his generation, can go to school and get an education. And then the next generation after that would go to school and get an education. And he told me it didn't matter if I swept the floors in Manhattan, but those floors were going to be something that people would be proud of, that you put your effort into it. And I took all that because I'm standing on the shoulders of people before me. And my father told me that if you ever are successful and then climb up the ladder of success at all, he said you help people because our family got help. And you never turn your back on people. So when I grew up, nobody stopped me in a car and put me on the side of the road because the tag was not valid or the window tint wasn't good and arrested my father or searched the car. Nobody grabbed my backpack from me, no police officer, and put me on the ground and held me there and went through my backpack and threw all my stuff around. So I didn't grow up, with any of the knowledge I have now about how law enforcement, and they're good. I've represented so many law enforcement officers, FBI agents, ATF agents, U.S. Marshals, local police, GBI scientists, GBI agents. They're great people, but I didn't see what was really going on. Where I lived in Queens, there were Puerto Rican people, there were Jewish people, there were Protestant people, there were people of color, Hispanic people. I learned to rate people on, that person's going to beat me up, that girl's going to sleep with everyone, that guy's the best athlete, that girl's the smartest person. It didn't matter what religion they were, gender they were, who they wanted to sleep with. I just looked at people like we're assets to each other, or I got to avoid them. And then I went to University of Michigan. I never left the New York area. I stayed there with my parents and my brother and sister. Then I had the honor of attending University of Michigan, and I couldn't believe the people I met. They were the smartest people at that time I ever been around, and no job was too hard for us, and no idea that was failing, and we could change the world, and I loved it. It ignited me, and I wanted to go back to New York. I went to Fordham Law School, had the honor of going there, and I was going to be a tax lawyer, and I got into NYU to get my LLM in tax. I was got a job at a big accounting firm. They were competing with the big law firms. And then in my third year, I met a man named Jim Cohen. Jim Cohen's a criminal defense lawyer, and he had a litigation skills clinic, and there were maybe 16, 17, 18, I don't remember how many students. He was really nice to me. I don't know why, but he was really nice to me. So we had a real case, and it's People versus Jenkins, New York versus Jenkins, and he gave me the Batson issue to write. And it was terrible. He rewrote it, and then he assigned me to argue before the appellate court. I couldn't answer any questions. And I didn't know, I shouldn't have been arguing. It was terrible, but the court reversed on that issue. And I saw the power of the courts. And that these cases we read really have meaning. And people want there to be fairness. And then Jim Cohen got assigned to Michael Quartararo's trial. And Michael Quartararo was 13 years of age, and he was convicted 12 years earlier of murdering his classmate, who was 12 years of age. That classmate's Johnny Pius, by shoving 6 rocks down his throat. And 12 years later, the appellate court on habeas corpus found that Michael Quartararo's trial lawyer was ineffective. So it's a retrial. 12 years later, I'm the same age as Michael Quartararo. It's the first time I ever saw her in jail. It's the first time I realized that you lock up a 13-year-old and they're having sex with their roommate who's a man. They've never been outside this little courtyard I saw, which is a deflated basketball or soccer ball. They had no books. Computers were just coming in at that time. Never knew about a computer. And he's institutionalized. And when he became 18, he goes to Rikers Island, and he's serving 25 years to life. And now it's a retrial. And my teacher's great to me, so I sit at the table with my teacher. It was my teacher, Michael Quartararo, and me. My teacher let me sit there, so I'm like a juror, because I don't know anything. But I'm watching, and I'm at bench conferences with the judge, and I had interviewed with my teacher all these witnesses, and I did all this research, and I believe to this day Michael Quartararo is innocent. And everything came out wrong at the trial. The prosecutor was just stunning in front of the jury. We were stumbling. Jim Cohen's a much better lawyer than me, but it just all came out wrong. There were arguments like Michael Quartararo came to Johnny Pius's funeral wearing a Grateful Dead shirt. You know, I'm like, I wear Grateful Dead shirts. I mean, this is not evidence. The jury convicts. I went home, and I realized I'm going to die one day, and tax law was just not going to do it for me. So I wanted to help one innocent person not go to prison. That's all I wanted to do. I could die. I thought maybe my life had meaning. So I faxed, some of you in this room are too young, but there was a fax machine at that time, and to the public defender in Fulton County, because New York was on a hiring freeze. It was in a bad budget crisis. My roommate from Michigan went to Duke Law School. He's working at Alston and Bird, telling me how great Atlanta is. And the Fulton County public defender picks up the phone. He says, "You're from New York. Do you know about the Bronx?" He's from the Bronx. I knew all about the Bronx. My dad's from there. My grandma lived there. He said, "You can come down to Georgia. You have to sign waivers. You can intern with us. You're not a member of the Georgia bar." I was only a member of the New York bar. And he said, "You can sit with us, and if we have a job, if you pass the Georgia bar, if I like you, I'll consider hiring you, but there's no promise." I quit the Price Waterhouse. I put the NYU on hold, and my father wouldn't talk with me. And it was great, you know, heartbreaking. I come down to Georgia, and I got the thrill of my life. I'm now in the jail, and I'm able to work for the lawyers at the public defender's office, like an intern, I guess, and I'm interviewing people, and I'm going out and finding their bond witnesses, and I'm going to these homes. I never saw it like this. You know, I never had this depth of feeling. I go into these homes, and it's pouring rain outside. You go inside, and it's pouring rain in the house. There's a hole in the roof. There are no books there. There are pictures of Martin Luther King and President Kennedy and President Lincoln on the walls, and Jesus.
But the children don't know who any of those people are. And then the children in the corner, I grew up playing with cars and balls. They're playing with roaches. They're trapping the little roaches in the corner, the little kids. And then I learned about how they hate the police. And I'm like, why would you hate the police? They protect us. They're like, it's not how it is for us. And I started talking with police, like, what's going on in the neighborhood? They're like, we hate these people in the neighborhood. We're scared. I'm not going to go home. So you have these two sides just hating each other, and they misunderstand each other. They don't trust each other. And then I see this just machine of people going to prison. I passed the Georgia bar. I'm given a job. And I don't know why, but people at the public defender's office are really nice to me. And they give me cases, and I have my own courtroom, and I'm trying cases in every courtroom in Fulton County. There was much smaller judges than, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 judges. But I have a demand for a speedy trial in every murder case, armed robbery case, all these judges. And I'm trying cases, and then they start giving me the appeals, so I get to do appeals, and appeals are great because I'm reading other great lawyers' work, other great judges' work. I'm learning. I just had the thirst. I still have it. I just want to learn. And then I met my wife, and she's the greatest person I ever met. She's the best lawyer, she's the best person, she's the best mother, best friend. And I don't know what happened, but next thing I know, I leave the public defender's office in November 1993, and we've been in private practice since. And I've been all over this country. I've been in cases involved internationally. I don't know why it happened to me, but when you see justice, when you see a judge, and we have them here in Georgia, and they're all over the country, that play by the rules, and they care about the rules, and they care about process, and they care about honesty. And when you see prosecutors who care about honesty and process and equality and laws, it's great. It's like you're walking on sunshine. But when you see prosecutors hiding evidence, telling witnesses don't say things, judges not following the law and saying I'm not following the law. You hand them a case and say, or her a case and say, here's the most current case. I'm not reading the case. You're like, how is that possible? What do you mean we're not reading cases? And that has broken my heart. And then, I live in jail. Every time I try a case, I go to the jail. I spend the night with my client. Because it never gets old. Hearing the bangs of those doors, it's freezing cold, the lights are so bright, people are screaming, they're mentally ill, they're stabbing each other. I eat the food that my clients eat, because I don't want to forget. This is not a joke. And I could die right now, nobody should have any concern. I have lived the greatest life I could ever imagine. But how did I get here? I don't know how I got here. And I don't want to be recognized. And I don't want to be called Johnny Cop. I never wanted anything. I don't have any social media. I didn't come from money. We have more money shoved at us than I ever imagined. I don't wear jewelry. I don't care about car I drive. I don't cheat on my wife. I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol. I don't care about vacation. I go on vacation. I do work. I like work, though. It's not work. To me, I can't believe I get to do that. I can't believe I'm speaking in front of you all. But anyway, I probably took too much time, but that is pretty much how I look at life. I just look at life like I am irrelevant. I am a piece of sand on huge amounts of ocean beach. And my life doesn't matter, but if I could help somebody along the way and give somebody an opportunity to feel like, somebody cared about them, then I think that maybe my life may be.
That's incredible. Well, I know, so I mentioned most people in this room are probably most familiar with you because of your role in some pretty major cases covered in the media in the last couple of years. So you've represented clients from your days in the Fulton County Public Defender's Office who come from humble beginnings, to put it mildly. Right? And now you've got clients who are well known. They're celebrities, public figures, artists. Does your approach to trial work or appellate work change in any way based on the nature of who your clients are, particularly considering that they may have public image to uphold?
Yes, but every case I've ever touched, every client is different, and every client has to be treated differently. When you have you know, Sean Combs, just inundated with, he raped children, he had these parties and children were drugged and unconscious and lines of people are having sex with them. And he's forcing, beating women into having sex constantly for 72 hours with men that they don't know and prostitutes from all over the country. That is like the narrative that was the big lie. It was just a total lie. And you know, when you get into the case and you start reading the information on the case, and you realize that the alleged victim has chats and text messages with Sean at the time saying, we're going to have a freak-off tonight. And Sean responds by saying, no, I'm sick, I can't do it. And the alleged victim is saying something to the effect of, well, I'm going to take everything that's not nailed down and put it into my private part because I cannot wait, and you are going to go to a doctor or take drugs, but you're coming because I need you, and this is what we're doing. And he's responding, it's not going to be tonight, we'll do it next week. No, you're going to, I don't care if you're dead, you're coming, you're going to be there. And you start asking the witness on cross-examination, you know, it's not no great, you know, magic to asking serious questions to witnesses, like, explain this. You can't just explain this. You know, talk as long as you want. There's no, like, I'm going to control the witness. Just, here it is. And then they say, well, on that occasion I did want to do it. In fact, on a lot of occasions, I wanted to do it. Well, how do you rectify that with this cloak of being a victim? Well, I'm just here, and the prosecutors ordered me to be here, and they asked me questions. Well, you enjoyed this. Yes, I enjoyed it. You wanted to have sex with the prostitute. Yes. In fact, I used to call them when Sean wasn't around. You know, some juror blurted out from the jury box during my cross-examination of one alleged victim. I said, you say that Sean raped you for 8 years, you worked for him, then you leave his employment. You don't work for him, it's 3 years later. And you wrote him this birthday card. And I read it. It's a night, if anyone said that about me, I would hold that birthday card forever. It was the most beautiful. You're inspiring. You're a leader, a generational talent. I love you. I miss you. I wish I was working with you. I asked the person, it's a different alleged victim, how do you explain that? And a juror blurts out, exactly. Puts down a pen, slams it down on the little table. It's actually a big table. It's a beautiful courtroom. And there were windows, by the way, for the people, the judges in power who built courthouses. Windows are great in a courtroom. And slams it down. 2 other jurors cross their arms. And the jury acquitted on everything that was RICO and sex trafficking. And they convicted us of, I think wrongly, of the Mann Act. And we're arguing, I'm not arguing, the great lawyers arguing, but I'll be there on April 9th. In Second Circuit. But the point I'm trying to make to you is every case is different, and you meet the client where they are, and you tell the truth. This is not about lying, hiding evidence, having a narrative without the information behind it. We are lawyers. We are not entertainers who go online and want clicks on the internet. Who cares? That's not what we do. We took an oath to help people, and the media are the best people to help people. The media, I think every trial should be on video. I think every trial should be covered by the media. Without the media, we fall into the dark ages. We are, without the media shining light, prosecutors, and they're rare. They are rare. It's shocking. But if they're unethical, it goes unnoticed, unpunished. Judges, they are rare, but it happens. When they do misconduct, it goes unnoticed and unpunished. Defense lawyers, and it is rare, but when they're not prepared, they lie to the judge, they give AI wrong cases, they tell witnesses to lie. What are we doing? But the media will be there and call it out, and that is an even playing field. So how do you deal with it, whether they're high profile or no profile? You hope the media is there, first of all, because they'll help. And second of all, you do everything ethical and honest, and you pile in that record what's really going on. So the appellate judges who aren't there don't get a video, which they should get a video to see demeanor and conduct and winks of eyes. But they don't see that. But what should happen is that would be an even playing field. So whatever the client is, Sean Combs and is a billionaire, or you got the person who tells you afterwards, no one ever fought for me like this. No one, I've never been to a doctor. I've never had anyone take time to learn about my history. Whether it's that person too, you give them everything you got and you tell that jury the truth. And the jurors are us. The jurors get it right. It is rare that, in my view, jurors get it wrong. Hope I answered your question.
You did. So we know that the law presumes innocence, but public discourse can move a whole lot faster in the courtroom. So how does a good criminal defense attorney navigate the tension between protecting the presumption of innocence, but also balancing that with public accountability?
So it's the greatest tool to me when the media wrongly starts saying how much evidence there is against my client. And I'm not a media person, so I'll speak with the media at times when it's in my client's best interest, but I'm not really interested in the publicity at all and talking about my client's case outside of the courtroom. That's how I learned. I may be wrong, but that's what I thought our bar rules were supposed to be. We don't try to poison the community. So, but when the media says that Jeffrey Williams, before the trial, was responsible for 28 murders, and the district attorney in Fulton County goes on the media and says that Jeffrey Williams is responsible for 70% of all crime in Fulton County, which, you know, who has that statistic, first of all? It's just a ridiculous thing to say. But it poisons people's minds, like you're saying. But what does that do for your jury pool? It was great. We had to pick a jury for 10 months in Jeffrey's case. But we had jury questionnaires. And on those questionnaires, jurors would write, he should get the death penalty. Why are we wasting this money? He should be under the jail. We hate his lawyer who stands with him. We hate him. This is a guilty verdict. And what happens then is, and the trial judge, the original trial judge, did, you could look up the statistics, I don't have them anymore, but he knocked off so many people for cause. So what does that do to the veneer panel? By the time we have the veneer panel, you know, I'm not stupid, I've tried a lot of cases. To me, I've tried a lot of cases. The veneer panel is now made up of people who say, well, I'm going to be fair and impartial. Rap lyrics don't impress me. And yeah, I heard all that media, but I'm going to wait for the courtroom. It's like this shining example of what a veneer panel should look like. Then I find that jurors, when they get in that jury box and the court has them raise their right hand and they swear to follow the rules given by the court and just judge on that case that came in the courtroom, I find that jurors follow that. So it's actually helpful, in my opinion. Same with Sean. We knocked off so many people in Sean's case for cause because they believed the media, but you left them with people who say, well, I know Sean Combs, he did a lot of good for the community. I could be fair and impartial. Those were our veneer panel. So I think it's better when the media wrongly gets it. It also does this. The jurors are in the box. They are aware of what was said. You know, Sean Combs has sex with all these people. Jeffrey Williams murdered all these people, had murdered all these people. Then the trial starts. The jurors are expecting, like, this is an onslaught. And they get garbage. And they get mad. And they return not guilty verdicts. So to me, the media before the trial can report everything wrong, because then the media at trial starts coming out and saying, well, this actually isn't the way we were told. The prosecutor's getting admonished by the judge for lying. The judge is meeting with prosecutors and witness in chambers, in a store. I mean, what are we doing to ourselves? And the jurors are pissed. Jeffrey's case, I am in touch with jurors. They call me from his case. They hated the prosecutors. I mean, imagine that. How did that happen to us? That is embarrassing for us. So the point I'm trying to make to you is, the worse it is pre-trial, I think, maybe I'm the only person, I think it's great for the accused. If you have the evidence. If you don't have the evidence, then obviously you're going to, get slammed anyway. So At that point, you have issues of pretrial publicity, change of venue, jury selection process, so it just creates more appellate issues.
We have a lot of journalists and attorneys in the audience today. What do you wish lawyers understood better about media coverage? And what do you wish journalists understood better about covering criminal defense cases?
Well, I have no right to tell other lawyers, you're all better lawyers than me, what to do or say, but, you know, when you're with the media, it's not about us. You know, we have to, lawyers are held in high regard. You know, we have a duty to the next generation of lawyers. They're coming. I was at the University of Tennessee this week, speaking with those lawyers. I was at the University of Florida School of Law this week. Yeah, one of them was on Zoom. Those guys want to get it right. You know, they're working hard to come into a profession with honor. And when we act like this, 70% of the crime in Fulton County is one person that clearly violates the bar rules before a trial. It just does. And I apologize. I have nothing personal against the district attorney in Fulton County. In fact, at one time I was friends with him. But, you know, at this point in my career, in my life, you know, the truth has to be told. So when you deal with the media as lawyers, I would just be yourselves and be the women and men who respect the system. Don't talk bad about judges. Don't talk bad about prosecutors. Don't talk bad about the defense law. Just stick to the point. And as far as media, I think media is great. The media I dealt with, and actually throughout the country, I mean, every one of them is great. But if you're looking to run a story that is untrue, or you run a story that's untrue, you should be the first person to be blasted, not on some correction on the, you know, on the back page of the social media site, but right away, I was misled. This is wrong, because you are affecting people's lives. Sean Combs has kids. Jeffrey Williams has kids. You know, this is not a joke. These people are getting beaten up. They're getting fired from jobs. They're getting sued wrongly. These crazy lawsuits against Sean. He has 150 lawsuits pending against him from the 1990s. People he never met in his life. Just because people are piling on because they want his money. Where is that in the media? Tell the truth. That's what I would ask everybody. But I find my own experience, media has been great, and lawyers have been great.
So after more than 3 decades of doing this work, what keeps you going? What keeps you going back for these particularly challenging, often controversial cases that are unfolding in the public eye?
So this is my 35th year of having the honor of practicing law, and it feels like 35 seconds. I feel stronger today than I did at 25. I get up every day, I do the same thing. I look at my wife, who's in bed next to me to my left, and I can't believe she's there. I thank God. I look at my kids' rooms, I have a flood of memories. I read the case law, I prepare my cross, whatever I'm doing that day. I stretch, I go jogging, I swim, then I go to the gym, I lift weights, I swim, I take a freezing cold shower, and I feel just like I could lift the world. And then after court or after a meeting, I go back to the gym and I swim and I shower and I go home and hang out with my wife. I'm exhausted at that point. And I read case law, and I can't believe I get to do this. You know, it's to say, like, how do you keep doing it? I can't believe I'm doing it at all. I feel stronger, more focused, more powerful. I'm not saying I'm good, by the way. I've never told anyone I'm a good lawyer, but I will tell people I will try my best. Whether that's good enough for the case, I don't know. I believe that being a lawyer, being a criminal defense lawyer, is, I'm grateful that I do this. I've met people, whether they're, I've represented mayor, senator, tons of business people, mothers, children, the poor, 2 billionaires. I mean, can you believe getting these people's lives? You know, my kids used to ask me, like, Dad, why don't you read these books? You know, by Stephen King or whomever, and I'm like, I'm living the books. I mean, this is, when you're with your client, I mean, that's the story. It's the real story I'm living. It's the most exciting thing I could do. And I'm grateful to do it. You know, if you took my bar card today, I would say nothing but thank you for all of the time that you let me do this. All I remember is the cases that I lost, or I didn't preserve the issue on appeal, or they harmed me. I don't remember anything that was positive because I expect our criminal justice system to work.
Well, I think we've got about 20 minutes left, and I am sure we have an awful lot of audience questions. So if it's all right with you, I think we'll go ahead and open it up. Nobody? Really?
I have a question.
Great.
You have such a pure view of the law being something you trust that is free from politics, I think. At least that's the way you describe it. So I'm wondering how you feel right now about the politicization of the courts, whether it's Fulton County's district attorney and how she's had to deal with the Trump case, whether you see how the administration in venues that I think you're not operating in are ignoring judges who issue rulings about, say, a person who's being deported and the like. Talk about the politicization, which strikes me as contrary to your very idealistic view of the purity of the law.
We're killing the system of justice, if it is even justice. Maybe it's an injustice system. We are demolishing it. Clients do not trust the judges. They do not trust the prosecutors. When you sit there and you get overruled time after time when you're showing the judge the case law, and then you find out that the judge has this ex parte meeting, and you go back to your seat next to Jeffrey, and he says, man, I'm out of here. You talk so highly of everything. This is not true. You know, imagine being the accused in that case. Just think about it. The leg iron on them, they're sleeping on cement at the Fulton County Jail. One guy got stabbed during the trial. Just think about that. Now you have a judge meeting with a witness and the prosecutors telling the witness, you can lie, but don't tell a big whopper. I mean, this is just, what we're doing is terrible. I just tried a case before the Honorable Judge Totenberg in the Northern District of Georgia. And we picked a jury. And then one of the jurors was sworn in but did not come. So we did jury selection for like a week. My memory may be wrong, but it was like a week. It was a huge case. It's like a week. And then we picked a jury on a day, and one of the veneer panel members who's qualified was selected, but not there for that moment. And we picked a jury. And we waived the presence, and they would come back, we'd start the trial the next day. And the prosecutor, the judge had just suppressed some evidence. And the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney in the Northern District of Georgia, comes into the courtroom, and he tells the judge that we are going to appeal your ruling and divest you of jurisdiction in this case, or you have to change your ruling. So I'm sitting there like, you gotta be joking. You're telling the Honorable Judge Totenberg that if she doesn't do something, she's gotta change, you're gonna take jurisdiction away. How dare you? How dare you? What happened to respect? You talk about politicization. I have clients who are, some of them are wildly wealthy. Now built in every case, the federal case, is $1 million. Think about this. They have hired lawyers who are close to Donald Trump, and they pay $1 million to get a pardon or a commutation before the trial. That's part of their legal fee now. So when you ask, how do you deal with this? What's going on? It is disgusting what we've done. You know, I don't care who is the president. I just want honesty. I can deal with policies. We don't have that now. And what have we done to the quote, justice system, Department of Justice? It's not a Department of Justice. Anybody who says that is not being straight. Where do you get more Maureen Comey was one of the lawyers on Sean's case, one of the prosecutors. She's a great lawyer. Her father was indicted. He's a former U.S. attorney of the Southern District of New York. He's a former FBI director. Gets indicted right before a statute of limitations. Are you joking me? Are you joking me because the president said so? Where are the lawyers to stand up and not just quit their office, stay in the office and say, I'm not doing it? Go to the grand jury and tell the grand jurors, don't indict. That's what lawyers do. So you get fired. So what? How do you go home at night and tell your kids, how was your day? It was great. The president's going to indict the former director of the FBI, and I know it's not fair, I know it's not just, and I know it's not based in fact. What'd you do about it, Dad? Well, I just quit. I mean, quit. Do the opposite. Say, as a member of the United States Attorney's Office, Department of Justice, the President of the United States of America is not my boss. My boss is the Constitution. My boss is ethics of the bar that I took. My boss is the judges that I have to stand before and tell them, why did I do this? And if they disagree with me, then take my bar card. Who cares? We have a totally broken system. So to answer your question, what do I think today? I think that it is shameful. It is shameful to have a social media site and have an 11 o'clock appearance to announce the indictment of Donald J. Trump and keep every one of those people in the clerk's office there who want to go home and deserve to go home to their kids and eat dinner. We are not about social media. We are not about news. We are the news. You don't have to make it. You have to call attention to yourself. So I think what we're doing is already broken. We are totally putting our judges at risk. They don't trust, people don't trust the judges. They don't trust the prosecutors, and they don't trust the criminal defense lawyers. I don't know about the civil side. I don't do civil work. I have one civil case. It's Jeffries. That's the only reason I'm involved. But the bottom line I'm trying to say to you is we are crushing ourselves. You people in here have the power. I look around. There are powerful people here. You have the power to tell the truth, regardless of money not being given to you at grants. Isn't it more about who we are than what kind of car we drive or how much money we have?
Thank you.
Some of you probably hate that, but that's the fact.
Well, this is sort of a brighter light, perhaps, in how people see what you do and what the process has been. In the Young Slime Life trial, as you may know, lots of lawyers were watching in various ways. Some of us were at our desk. And so I was watching on Twitter, on X, and there was a young man, I assume he's a young man, named Thuggers Daily. And I don't know if you've ever looked back at what people said during the trial, but this guy started off not knowing anything about process, and then every day he'd sort of study it and he'd give a précis of what happened. And I actually messaged him and said, hey, dude, you should continue with that. Do you know that? Have you ever looked back at Twitter or anything and seen the reflections?
So no, I didn't, and I don't know that gentleman, but I know exactly who you're speaking about. But what was happening during Jeffrey's trial is I got calls from circuit court judges from across our country. I got calls from U.S. attorneys from across our country. I got calls from district attorneys from across our country and all throughout Georgia. I got calls from superior court judges in Georgia. I got calls from appellate court judges in Georgia. I got calls from lawyers, I got calls from citizens, I got calls from record labels, I got calls from the media, and all these people are telling me, hey, that person, I know that person, and that person has a conviction out of Arizona. Or, hey, what that person just said is wrong because here's the lyric that they're talking about, and it's over here. Or judges. I have these notes, I saved them, if anyone wants to see them. I have these letters from judges. This is bad. This is bad for us. Saying, thank you for standing up. I think your client is probably guilty because I'm bent that way. But what you did is showed everybody what our system should be, because now we have to dig our way out of the ditch that the Fulton County Public Prosecutor's Office and the judges, not the judge in Fulton County put us in, and I'm a judge. And I have to now explain to my people why that never should have happened. So what did I do? I got tons of information because it was publicized. I got great tips from people, but no, I never personally got on it. But my office followed it. They were like, they took it as entertainment. They were like, texting me during the trial. What about this? I'm like, don't you guys have work to do? They're like, actually, it's rather interesting, and I can't tune out now. But the media again helped get the truth out. And I had a lot of people. Jeffrey, he entered a plea at some point before this unbelievably great court. If everybody was like the court that we had eventually, the justice system would be shining. I mean, this judge is spectacular. She's fair, and she's firm, and she knows the law, and wants everybody to know the law. But Jeffrey had tremendous, I'm not going to say it, but opportunities to travel internationally, to tour, to do movie deals, book deals. He's like, Brian, you think this is great? I ain't sitting here another 60, 90 days. My life, I could deal with probation. If I get probation, I gotta get out of here. My family's falling apart. If you think about that, he knew he was getting acquitted. Now, no one knows it, but you get a sense of the jury. He wasn't getting convicted. How about that? And he knew that. And he's like, I don't want to sit here anymore. Isn't that a broken system in and of itself? A human being enters a guilty plea because he can't get a bond. His back is breaking from sleeping on cement. His family's falling apart, and he has opportunity after opportunity to launch just incredible success, bigger than he ever was before his arrest on May 9th of 2022. I looked at him, I'm like, this is wrong. He's like, yeah, what you do, what you practice in is wrong, Brian. I'm out of here. If you could get me out of here. And I said, there's no guarantee. He's like, if you told me the nicest thing about this judge, you told me you trust her, she's not stupid, is she? I'm like, no. She sees what you see. I'm like, of course. He's like, then if you think we have a shot, let's do it. But, it broke my heart. Here's a guy with an acquittal. Instead, he's on, I can't remember, 10, 15 years probation. I mean, how do you get there? We got a problem, but we need to solve this problem. And probation, by the way, I know it's not your question, probation is not winning the lottery. Probation for a lot of people, they get fired from their job, they can't get loans, they're given money to probation, they can't support their family, and because of that tension, they don't show up for probation, now there's a warrant, now they're in jail. A lot of these cases should be dismissed. And I was with the Honorable former Justice Blackwell recently, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, but he's like, we should redo the criminal code. Everything is prosecuted. Everything's a crime. We don't have to prosecute all these people.
Any other audience questions?
I'm going to come ask one. Can you hear? Yeah. I'm going to devil's advocate to you. I got to push you a little bit on, you're a great advocate. You're who I'd want advocating for me. But some of these cases are not just defendant against state, defendant against government. There are people on the other side too. There are, in a case like the Combs case, women who feel like, look, I was victimized, I was exploited, I was coerced, I had this relationship where, yes, I sent flirtatious messages, but I'm dealing with this guy who's incredibly wealthy and powerful. It's not a normal consent type situation. What do you say about the people on the other side of these cases? What do you say about the people? Does that bother you, keep you up at night? How do you reconcile that in your head when you're getting into litigate mode?
That's what we do, right? I was told, I was trying to get one time, the judge said, this is great. Trials are a collision sport. That's what we do. You have one side here representing the alleged victim in your case. You have another side here representing the accused. And everybody has a voice. And everybody should be able to come to court and testify without any type of telling what to testify to, without any type of hiding evidence, without any type of agenda, and say, here's what happened to me. And the other side gets to cross-examine them. And if the defense wants to put up a case, they can put up a case. And you put it to the people, and they decide. There is nothing wrong with fighting with everything you can that is ethical and lawful for a person accused. And there is nothing wrong with fighting with everything you can that is ethical and lawful for people who have allegedly been victimized. So your question, when you say, how do I think about it? I think about it as that's what we do. And I'm going to do that, I believe, I hope, until I drop dead. And, I'm not Jimmy Berry or something. I'm not going to go that long. But my point is, that is what the calling is. That is what the judges require. We take an oath to do exactly what you ask. And how do you do it? I don't decide who gets a rigorous defense and who gets a mediocre defense because the evidence is overwhelming. The courts have taught me the exact opposite. The courts have told me, you challenge every piece of inculpatory information and you get out every piece of exculpatory information. That is the only way we get justice. And that's why all the rules are for the citizen. Our country started, we don't, today and whenever our country was birthed by the women and men who founded it and wrote our Constitution. We don't trust the government. That is our entire basis. We don't take away liberty without all these rules engaged and without fairness. And to say, like, how do you, I don't know if this is with your statement, but how do you live with yourself? How do you reconcile alleged victims? I reconcile it the way that I was taught. I'm going to fight with everything that I can, professionally, God willing, lawfully, definitely, and ethically. And if the verdict is guilty, it is horrible. But then what do? We appeal. And if the verdict is not guilty, I don't sit there and jump on a table. I've never done that. I just leave. And I try to find my wife or my kids. So that's, I don't talk about it. I look at this so serious. And we have convicted innocent people because lawyers don't zealously defend people. How do we live with that? In Sean's case, Sean, and he'll be the first one to tell you, I'm not giving away any attorney-client privilege, he is violent. He has brutalized women. He has taken his fist and put it into their eye socket. He has knocked them down, dragged them like they're trash. But to say that there's this incongruent, jurors make those decisions. And if you looked at his trial or looked at the evidence, there's overwhelming evidence that it was consensual sexual relations. The government never charged him with domestic violence or battery or aggravated assault. They went for his life. That was a life sentence he faced. And they prosecuted him as RICO. You gotta be joking. The man had Harvard business people running his international company. They're involved in a RICO organization? You gotta be joking me. What Sean did to women, violence, he's gonna live with that. It has stained and tattooed him forever. But to say that he took advantage of his power to force, coerce, and threaten women to have sex against their will is a lie. And that's what we tried. And that's why the jury rendered verdict. We tried that case, I don't remember how long, 5, 6 weeks. The jury was out like a day. I mean, this was not close. This was not a close question.
All right, I think we have about 1 minute, so I just want to thank you so much, Brian. Guys, help me thank Mr. Steele for spending his morning with me.
Professor Hurley, and thank you for, we tried to schedule this to get everybody's blood pumping in the morning, and mission accomplished. If you're not wide awake, then you're not paying attention. So we have a little bit of a break now, but please, everybody, 9:50, 9:50, we're going to promptly start with drinking from a FOIA fire hose. So if the panelists for that panel want to make their way up and go ahead and get a beverage, a restroom break, but do be in your chair because right at 9:50 we're going. Thanks.